Charlie, I'm going to come to you first. What do you think about Phil's comments and his belief, now that he's had a taste of what American soccer is all about, of our potential? And I, in some ways, agree with him that we've said it before, we're planting the seeds of 2022 so we can have a tremendous run in 26.
That was always the plan. You don't go from not qualifying for the World Cup and then completely revamping the player pool with an average age of 23 years old and think you're going to win the World Cup. That doesn't work. The whole plan was, let's get this youth, this talented youth that we have. We're going to kind of move aside from the older generation. And typically, in a national team, you have like 5, 6, 7 players who have played at least one World Cup. That's not the case now. And so that was the direction Greg Berhalter and U.S. Soccer wanted to go in. Great. That's the understanding. We get it. I think for 2026, if you've given all these players, these studs who have, really started to show what they're capable of in Europe, which is really impressive, and in Major League Soccer, that I think it's going to give us a lot of hope. The hope, though, ultimately is that they do progress out of the group in 2022. Then we can be talking about us winning the World Cup in 2026. The England team, yes, everyone knows they can win the World Cup. If you're competing for the Euros, then you're good enough to win the World Cup. That's how difficult the Euro tournament is. So ultimately, you got to come and bring it every game, and luck plays into it. So it's not as easy as it is. If you have all the talent on paper and on the pitch, it doesn't always work that way. We know that. So I think for us, all the U.S. players playing, you have nothing to lose. Everything in the game, it's all in front of you.
Right.
And when we talk about teams sitting in, who's going to sit in against the U.S. in the World Cup? Everyone thinks they can beat the U.S. Oh, they're 23 years old. They're going to be coming, which plays right into our hands. Just be smart, be pragmatic, and then when you have the opportunity, finish, which we haven't done in CONCACAF World Cup qualifying. But I think this team
we're saving it. We're saving it for the World Cup, Charlie. That's the silver line. So Heath, one thing that I thought was interesting with Phil's answer, and I hadn't taken this into consideration until he said it, was the fact that he thought the players could be fresh actually for the first time in a World Cup because they're not on the back end of a 50, 60, 70 game season. What are your thoughts on that particular perspective? Because MLS players, the ones that make the roster or the ones that make rosters for other countries, will be coming off of a long, arduous season.
Well, most countries will be in that situation, especially in Europe. Obviously, you go into the Americas and you have completely different league structures and timings, from Brazil playing sort of the regional league to their actual league play. Argentina similarly going through kind of constant changes. But for me, it's still, you're going to have a condensed summer, that goes into that. So it's going to be shortened because you got to make up for time in the World Cup. So there's going to be a busy schedule. We've seen for the last couple of years, pandemic related, how much gets jammed into these schedules now across the board. So I do think it's a better advantage than sort of the fatigue that goes into a summer before. To be honest with you, Jimmy, when you teed it up as like us not being very happy with what he said, I was viciously looking for stuff on the internet while he was talking, waiting for him to have some shots fired at us.
It's coming. It's the Jamie Carragher and Micah Richards that's gonna.
Oh, don't worry. Well, we've got plenty to say back to anybody that's going to be criticized from the sidelines of England's performances in last generations. But no, overall, I agree with Charlie in the sense that 2026 is the long-term goal. To do that, if you look at any sort of, and I don't think we're in a golden generation. I think the next generation is going to be far better than this group that we have. And I think we're going to see now. Well, I just think we're going to see a new standard, and that standard will have a golden generation at some point. And so I don't think that we're there yet. But 2026 being the goal. And by the way, England didn't qualify in 94, the last time that we hosted a men's World Cup.
Nice.
But it is worth noting that this is part of a longer project. And I don't want to put too much pressure. I think we should set lofty goals. And I think getting out of the group stage is a great point. But, England, same thing. They get quarterfinals 2 of the last 4, round of 16, one of those ones, out of the group stages of like the last 5 one time, that sort of thing. So there is a building blocks. It just doesn't come overnight. And so, I agree that it's about 2026, but I don't want that to be this crutch that allows us to get out of not putting together solid performances, not knowing how to navigate a group stage in a World Cup, and challenging ourselves against a diverse group of opponents in what I think is a group that we can realistically get out of, and England being a team that we can realistically get, quote unquote, a result against.
Okay. Well, I guess I was kind of teasing some more clickbait. It wasn't really with the Phil Neville interview, but it is with these statements that I saw. I was watching it post-game Champions League, Thierry Henry, Kate Abdo, Jamie Carragher, Micah Richards. And I was like, are these guys are taking the piss. Take a look at this.
25th of November, 2022, England versus the USA.
Oh, my word.
Predict the score.
2-0 England.
3-0 England.
1-1.
1-1?
Yes,
Oh, trying to keep his happy.
Let's go, Thierry.
Trying to get a new
Diplomatic and all
contract.
that,
Yeah.
That's actually what I think. 1-1.
You do?
No chance.
Thierry.
So
I love
Jamie
the- I love the
Carragher
no
says
chance.
no chance. But
Oh,
Heath, I'll come to you first on this. That I know they were put on the spot and they had to throw it out there. Micah Richards, very, very confident in that. Jamie Carragher, the 3-0, the no chance at the end, pretty disrespectful. And I hope we can get him on the show at some point and we can use this clip against him because I think he's going to eat his words. But Thierry Henry, New York Red Bulls, he's played in MLS, he's coached in MLS, he knows the system, he knows the players. I think being very unemotional and kind of seeing it for what it is. 1-1. Who do you think's right out of this conversation? Micah Richards, I mean, 2-0, it could be 2-0. Who knows?
I think it'll be a tight game. I don't think it'll be a 2-0. Could the U.S. lose 1-0? Sure. Do I think it could be a 1-1? I do believe that. I think we are drinking our own Kool-Aid often. If you think about,
Well,
if you
so
think
are
about
they, apparently.
Oh, for sure. But like they've also got some results to show that
they're bathing in
yeah,
their Kool-Aid.
but they always have, and they've tremendously underperformed over the generations of national team. But this is a new national team. It's a new era in England with a young squad that's cut their teeth in the Euros, that cut their teeth in the last World Cup. Both of them extremely successful runs in the grand scheme of things. And so there's naturally a belief of, same with what you would call the golden generation of Belgium, of like constantly being ranked 1, 2, 3, 4 in the world. Like they should win. They haven't. And so it's a challenge, but I'm talking about winning the tournament. But against the US, if you think about it in the context of what they're looking at, they don't see the US any different than they would see a Wales or a Scotland in terms of, hey, we've got some players playing at these clubs and you have these other players playing at these clubs and you have like tier 1A Champions League. You've got some non-Champions League tier 1 players. You've got some, championship level players. And I think that's the way that they see us. We see it differently because we're in the thick of it. So, while
but there was something to said, Heath, though, where even though we might not have had those tiered players, when you talk with ex-foreign players, ex-foreign internationals, and we've all had that opportunity, they always admired our team spirit and our togetherness and that kind of those intangibles that maybe they didn't have because they just maybe they had too many big names that they didn't want to share the ball. There was too much, in intra-team politics or whatever you want to say. I don't know. Are we evolving into that? I mean, is that where we want to go? Obviously, we want our players playing at the highest competitions, but do you think we would lose some of that identity that we've been known for, or do you feel like we need to evolve from that anyway?
No, I mean, by the way, I think we're going to evolve from that with time because talent is going to eventually win that over. I do think that there is still this missing piece because of just how big our country is, the styles of play and everything of like fitting into a system. Now, England, I think, also suffers from that same style, but most other countries in Europe have a system or style that is culturally part of their identity. But I don't think we'll lose that because I think we'll tap back into that. The thing about CONCACAF World Cup qualifying is that it does test you in a number of ways that you as a player think egotistically that going down to Honduras, there's no way it can test me in a way that I haven't been tested, right? I play at Juventus. And then you get punched in the face and you go, okay, this is different. You feel this momentum swing that you've never felt in your life before that's based on a number of factors you can't control. You learn from all that type of stuff. I think we will be very hard to play against with England. Do I think they'll control probably the flow of the play and have the better of possession and probably the better of chances? Sure. But I would have expected that down in Mexico, and we could have gotten out of that way with the result. It's going to have to be a day where we're playing at 8, 9s, and 10s across the board for our national team. But there's no reason that we can't get a result against England. And it wouldn't be something you make a movie out of. It's about the team being talented and the team also executing a game plan that can beat England.